So, I have created spider Tachikoma tanks for the invented faction of China that only exists in my mind for Fallout. Also flying Soviet robots for the invented Soviet Union that only exists in my mind. I guess it's time to create a gigantic West German robot, because
Tod ist die bessere Alternative zum Kommunismus.
But there is a problem. Liberty Prime is quite humanoid. He has arms, he has legs, he has head, and I have used this. This is the robot generator created by Bill from Bill Making Stuff. I really recommend you to visit his channel, but most probably you know him already. And we have to use a D20 die. That means that everything will be random. And if everything is random, that means that probably it will not look like Liberty Prime. Let's begin by the beginning. Let's use this Indian stuff to throw the dice. Okay, first of all, we had a 1, which means barely full, which means a bit fat for a robot. It's not bad, I could work with that. But the second is number 3, which means cute and round. We are not working with this. Number 20, War Machine. Could be, yeah? Could be. Number 20. Guns. Well, I guess not. Locomotion system, it is wheels. This is not working. And the last, polished. Okay, that is the only thing that Liberty Prime is. So, yes, I guess not this time. I will have to improvise something. Okay, let me check.
Приветствую, товарищ командир. Операционное система сообщения.
Well, the system has found this. The Stalin's balls combat systems based on spherical robots and spherical tanks. So, as Apocalypse Tank Cruz once said,
Soviet power supreme. Armageddon is here. It is day of judgment. Be patient. Excellent.
Chapter 1. The Stalin's balls. Well, the most impressive thing is the fact that these things somehow existed to a degree. Not actually in the Soviet Union, but the Kugelpanzer somewhat again existed. The United States also tried to create a spherical tank, and the idea with these vehicles is to create a kind of trench-capable cheap vehicle. That's the reason it's an idea from World War I that a lot of different countries had. This is the IS-8 ball tank, a science fiction invented tank for the game World of Tanks. And the thing is, with the cards that I have, the only vehicle or robots that I can create or generate are spherical shaped ones. By the way, this is a channel Found and Explained, and he has an entire video about the Kugelpanzer. This will show you how these things could work. Again, they are absurd, so they will operate bad, really bad as tanks. But the thing is, for science fiction, this tank, or this NR-99 Persuader snail tank from Star Wars, I guess it's called, they could exist. Crafting things, which is in chapter 1. So as parts, as pieces, I have used these Christmas glossy balls and this small ball from a toy attached to a wheel of a truck, if I'm not wrong. And the thing is, I wanted to make the most easiest shape possible, allowing you to create something similar like mine. And as you can see here, it's almost done, it just needs details. So, first of all, we will have to sand the wheels, because at this scale, I imagine this could came from a mining truck, a recycled mining truck. So, because of that, we have to create these detail indentations. And I'm creating or making this with this cutter or X-Acto knife, which is not actually an X-Acto knife, it's a cutter, and it's as easy as I'm doing right now. The problem, it is quite tedious, it takes a lot of time. But if you have time, you will have this, and this came from a toy. So if you have toys of your kid or of somebody, or yours, and you are not gonna use it never again, you could make a wheel as simple as this. And now you are seeing all of this detail with the light on my left, allowing to cast more shadows. This is a wheel from a toy, I guess tractor, or truck, I guess a tractor, yes, and I have done exactly the same. After this, what you could do is the most basic thing, which is to glue the hemispherical domes, but me being me, I will overcomplicate my life more than necessary, making a system allowing this to move, because I am a weird person. I probably will never touch this thing for playing, but knowing that I can do that creates a smile in my face. Again, I am weird, so you should not make this and lose your time making this. I'm basically showing this, allowing you to know that it can be done if you want to make a movable toy or scale model. That wooden bead sphere will be there, allowing this plastic to be in position. By the way, these plastic things, black things, came from an escalastric, I guess, pillars for a bridge or something. Now I am applying an immense amount of cyanocrolite and now baking soda, allowing this to harden as rock and creating more structure, because this, when it will be finished, it will be glue, and I do not want this to break. I would really appreciate by your part or your parts if you gave a like to this spherical content about tanks. Thank you very much. After this, sand the entire plastic and draw a circle and make a hole, because that will allow us to create a socket allowing the cannon to move, to gimbal, I guess it's called. So put a bit of Loctite or cyanocrolite glue, because the liquid one, it will drip. You do not want that, it's better to use the gel one, and after this it will dry. Again, put an immense amount of cyanocrolite, and now it looks like an idiot. Perfect. So now let's create the cannons. You need 2 balls and a cannon, and these cannons came from pens. I love pens. Yes, and you pick one of these pilot pens and it has a lot of details. For example, it has that bevel there. I will cut the bevel, I will glue the bevel to the top part of the cannon, oops, and it will look like a kind of recoil thing that will allow the gun to go inside once it's shooting. But we need to sand this, and by the way, you should cut the tip. Glue the cannon to the ball and use some type of thing to harden the union. I have used, again, cyanocrolite, baking soda and that plastic rod. And now I'm dry fitting if the cannons fit inside the sockets or not. And actually, yes. This is one of the main details that I need to know, because after seeing this, I could see how much detail I could add without breaking the shape of the sphere. Now, mechanically speaking, in between commas, I will add little wheels on the sides to add more stability to the vehicle, because it has no stability. And they came from a Lego, which I found on the street once. So it's technically trash, and it was a fake Lego, so don't be afraid. Now, what I will need to do is to create some type of hatch, because it's a vehicle, not a robot, so it needs humans inside. So I will use this kind of compass, which has a kind of needle, in order to mark this hatch there. The mini real model has a similar hatch like this. Now I will create ball-mounted machine guns to protect the guys going inside and outside of the tank, or to make the day of someone a bit more nasty. I will use these balls, these bullets, which are balls which came from an airsoft pistol, and I will use these needles in order to create the guns. Then pick the tip of this pen, cut the pen tip again, and you will have a mount that will allow this machine gun to gimbal. You should need to do this, obviously not, but I want to see if this can move or not, and well, it moves. I'm happy right now. Okay, so if you like content of balls moving, or moving balls, or if you like content of balls, you can give me a like. I will really appreciate that. So now it's time to create a hook for self-recovery of the tank, or a winch, or whatever name it has. This nevertheless is a vehicle, so it will be needed for it to be recovered or to tow from other stuff, to be transporters, to transport something, etc. Use these plastic sheets in order to create this and then glue it there in position. What you can do is to use parts of other model kits. In the front I will glue another hooks which came from an M113 APC, and this grill came from a Humvee. And it's the moment to add more details. This headlight came from a Jeep Willys at 112, I guess it was a die-cast model, and it was broken, completely broken. Also, I have added this thing as a kind of periscope which came from a gas canister for lighters, if I'm not wrong, and there is a variety of more details that we need to add. For example, respirators for the inside of the tank, for extracting the smoke of the cannons, for NVC protections, etc. Those came from a T-34 up from a T-72 Things, which I will never use. Right now I will need to change the viewport for the driver, because it is a square thing, I dislike the square thing, so I will hit this screwdriver, put it there, generate or create a slide, allowing the driver to see through that slide, and then I will glue this thing. By the way, this semi-spherical thing came from I don't know. I cannot say because I do not know, I don't remember. Also, I have made holes and glue small cameras inside, like the ones the small Soviet robots I made in another video were made from. Now what I need to do is to add weights to the vehicle, because it is a sphere, it has no stability. So these weights came from airsoft pistols from dollar stores. Usually they are on the handle of guns, airsoft guns of course. So with an immense amount of cyanocrylite and baking soda, glue it inside, add a bit more few things, and now it's stable. Now with this pyrograph tool I will make a hole there in order to create a gun sight for the gun, because the guns should be aimed somehow, even if it's aimed through a machine or whatever it's using these guns. So now that we have a convincing guns with mantlets and gun sights, it's time to make the last details. For example, I have discovered that there are some parts of the vehicle that will need more detail, both because it's essential for the model to work and both because it looks good. For example, these rings will allow the guns to not go out or poke out. The hinges, the handles were made using wire. You basically bend the wire, hit the wire, put the wire, and then you have detail. The rings of the guns were made with the black plastic things of before. And now it's time to create the bar robot with the wheel of the tractor and those hemispherical shapes or hemispherical balls, and with parts of pens. Chapter 2, Balbot Tank. We will make some holes and then install the guns inside. The guns came from these things, which came from the things that pours the ink inside pens. Once you deplete a pen, you will have these three things which could work as automatic cannons or as small caliber cannons, not probably as machine guns, but as cannons you can work with this. And now it's time to put it there, and with this simple technique you can create simple turrets which look like house moving castle ones. So you have that idea there. As I say always, do dry fitting, which consists in not gluing things, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm basically putting the cannons there to look to see if they convince me or not, and then I will glue it. And now I will do the same I do on the big tank for this robot with these small Lego wheels. First I will have to cut some excess part of the fake Lego which I do not need, and now I will use one of the most useless thing developed or created by Games Workshop, which is the flying stands, and these plastic things which came in scale models, which are plastic sprue, to create this support to look like the wheel supports biplanes had in the interwar period, for example, because I like how it looks. Then I will glue this metal ball inside this other metal ball and glue the flying stand inside the ball with, again, a lot of cyanocrylite and baking soda. And now the wheel moves, but we need to add more detail. I will use this technique which I relearned from this channel, which is called Road Warrior John, and he creates vehicles for gaslands, and it consists on cutting the head of a push pin and then gluing it on the wheel. Because it was a Lego one, it had zero detail, and now it looks a bit more retro-futuristic. What are you seeing right now is the fact that this has been automatically, magically glued here, and that's because I have glued a gigantic magnet inside with the basic technique of adding a lot of cyanocrylite with baking soda. Yes, I have mentioned that a lot of times, but it's like magic, it works always. Then that wooden part was a bead, and now this hemispherical dome, which is not exactly a dome, came from I do not know where, but it will be certainly there as a kind of armored eye cover for cameras or whatever. After this, again, add a lot of cyanocrylite and baking soda. Nobody will know it if it looks ugly because it will be completely covered. And I will add, oh surprise, a lot of cyanochrolite again, with baking soda, yes, inside of here in order to glue that in place. Then it's just time to cut that excess and to glue a bit more things. As you can see, the wheel also moves here because I have a problem and I like models that move. Then again, glue another push pin here to add more detail. It could be a cover in order to remove the hemispherical domes and access the robot. Hit a screwdriver to create that eye socket, armored eye socket, to look like the snail tanks, snail droids of Star Wars. And now also I have made some holes for cameras, for a fuel cover, and for an electrical plug cover, because it will work on something, this vehicle. I'm not sure if fuel, nuclear, energy, whatever. The more details, logical details that you apply, the better. Now I'm gluing cameras there, and it's almost done. And right now it's time to glue the cameras inside, because this robot will need to see what is directly in front of him with the armored eye sockets. He can't, or it can't, and glue the cover, fuel cover there, which came from a big plastic sprue. On the other side, I will glue this fake Lego thing, which I'm not sure from where it came, and then I will admire my work. Not, for now not. I have to glue those things there, which came from the rock of lighters. It's a kind of easy way to make hooks for vehicles, for towing or whatever. Also, these wheels, I imagine in real life they will not have any kind of engine, but they could move thanks to the articulation point. So that means that it will allow the robot to be collapsible, be easy to be transported by air, by land vehicles, and the most important, to aim at different directions. The tank needs the guns to move, but this robot, keeping in mind that there is nobody inside, it can aim directly himself to shoot two things, as you can see right now. Chapter 3. The Bomb Bot. Okay, so let's use this small toy ball, which came from a pillar, I guess, and then this track wheel, and then make holes and glue the detonators there, which were made as with the same technique I use for the mine-flying robots, for the Mad Max cars, if I'm not wrong. Then I will glue there guitar strings to allow this robot to attach onto things and allow it to rotate. And I will glue antennas, because it will look more like a kind of angry, explosive Sputnik, and I like the idea. Then hit a screwdriver to create this grill for the engine or for the magic fuel it uses, and cut the excess, and a hole to add another fuel cover. The idea with this guy is to create a movable bomb, a remote mine, like the ones of Games Workshop or the ones of real life. For example, you have here the Cyclops, the new Games Workshop one, and this dude. Speaking about dudes. So let's make the dudes. Well, this video is about robots and tanks, so I have not done nothing about dudes. Only this interesting fact. Basically, it costs like 4 euros. They are tankies from AliExpress. And the grey plastic things you see, they came from this sprue from War Games Atlantic, from a World War I sprue thing. And what I want to tell you is the fact that, yes, it's quite bigger if you compare it, but the pistol, it's gigantic. It fits better on this 135 scale and vice versa. 135 scale things usually look better in 40K or 28mm scale. For example, this faceplate for the French army, which was anti-shrapnel thing, it fits quite good in the head, in the face of this guy. And also, the respirator thing, or whatever it is, it came from another War Games Atlantic sprue. So if you want for me to make an entire video of how I kit bash figures at 135 scale, because you like it for your dioramas or your whatever, you can allow me to know, say me in the comments. Because for me, it's funny to make. But for now... Check it out! By the way, that sound effect came from Scooby-Doo. If you want to know about the texture of casting steel that I have made here, I recommend you to see the Tachikoma tank video, because I delve more into it. In this video I just didn't want it. It is like 35, 34, 30 something minutes of video. Just imagine if I have done also that. So yep, I have painted all of this, and this is what I was saying you before. I put this to dry fast on a kind of radiator gas thing, and it melted. So I have to cut it. It trimmed the tip a bit, now it's a bit shorter, and I like it because overall it breaks less the shape of the semi-sphere or the sphere. Now let's paint. By the way, I am not Bill, I am not gamey Bills, this is my real ability at the time of drawing stuff. To put it simple, let's say that my ability to draw stuff is equivalent to the one of a toddler. So I needed to ask to my father to draw this because I was not even able to draw a circle, as you have seen here. First of all, I will make the lining of the nose out of the shark mouths using a pencil, and then this paint, which is from Anthem, which is from me, and which is a kind of gray. I will use this as an outliner because in the later steps, when everything will be covered, including these lines, I will use black. So if I have some problem and the paint is not that as visible or has not the same contrast as black, it will be easier to fix it. And now let's try to make the teeth. First of all, we have to cover everything. And I usually use this type of petrol looking thing and then spray the white, because there is no white that can be applied properly with the brush without looking extremely horrible. So after this, it's just time to paint the teeth. By the way, I based on the picture, so I didn't do it properly. I will let you know more later. Let's paint the eyes yellow with this yellow signal train thing. Because I imagine the tanks are not like the P-40s of World War II, they are not like sharks, they are land vehicles, they are more like reptilians. So let's paint this yellow. And then, for this guy, the same. I really recommend you to use something like this if you do not have good pulls, or if you do not have good grip at using an airbrush or your spray speeds, because it can save you from the ruin. Now again, see my shaky hands. These are normal lines and I'm making them quite horrible. The thing that I have is tricks, but I do not consider myself a good painter. There are other good painters. For example, for tanks and vehicles, you have the channel of Night Shift. For figures, for example, you have Fumikito, and you have Trovarium Miniatures. He paints really good. By the way, right now what I'm doing in the eyes is elongating that shape to make it look more like a reptile, and then with alcohol I will clean the rest because it's acrylic. If you try to clean it immediately after putting the paint, after painting, it will be easier. Again, me painting lines. Now it looks horrible, but just wait till the teeth and the lips are black. It will look considerably better. As I was saying, now it looks better. And now it's time to cover everything with black in set line in that place, and it will end looking like this. It works better right now. It convinces me more. But again, I have to fix the blue robot for a simple reason. I painted the teeth like in the paper and it doesn't convince me, so I will use the actual shape of the squares to make little triangles, to make these more serrated teeth, like the ones in P-40s. So you have this kind of accidental technique here if you want to do the same. And I will use these stencils in order to airbrush numbers and stuff. In this case, there were Soviet stencils, so I will airbrush Soviet stuff. It is really important to do this in this order because this is paint. The next step will be to make defects on the paint, chipping, but real actual chipping, not paint. So if you put a decal, you will break the decal. If it's paint, actually not. Just see the right side of the tank here and the left. In the right I have applied the technique I usually use, which I have learned from Sergio Solo, and I explained that technique better on the Tachikoma video and in the Sergio Solo video which I made about the Akuyaku tank of Hayao Miyazaki. But basically consists on this. This is a filter. This is a kind of oleum-based paint with pigment, but not actually oleum. So if you do not allow the pigment to mix with the other and you use that liquid, you will remove the paint, as you are seeing right now. And now it's time to do the same with the blue robot thing. Here it is. As you can see, because the paint is lighter, it's not green, I have painted this in a light blue, which was more like gray, and then another blue, and it looks like this. Nevertheless, the metallic ball part of the articulation has chipped a lot. I will have to fix this later, because it is what I have explained on the Tachikoma. The problem is that movable parts will chip by nature, so you need to think on that before. And the same happens with the small bomb robot. This one has no movable parts, so I have to simulate the chippings. And now it's just time to paint the wheels with basic black. I will not delve more into this because it's basic black, is using a brush and that's all. By the way, the big tank, in the big tank I didn't paint nothing because it was black in origin, because it was rubber. But this important part is to, let's say, accentuate the details. I am using rubber color. In order to accentuate the details of the wheels, I'm doing dry brush with this paint. It has nothing special. After this, just take care of not tainting or painting the actual tanks and robots. Chapter 6. Decals. For this, you should need first to varnish the vehicles, the things, the models, and then use the decals. I will use the DECALS softener in order to allow this to look better. Then that one came from a tank, I guess, and this one's from Necromunda, if I'm not wrong, and this other one's from tanks also. I prefer to use the DECALS softener because this texture of casting steel has some kind of ups and downs. If you use the DECALS softener, the numbers will apply and envelop the irregularities of the surface quite better. After that, varnish again, and it comes weathering. For weathering the wheel, for this part, I'm using Nuln Oil because it's more acrylic, it has more covering, but now I'm using oils for these small parts, because oils have less surface tension. That means they get better into crevices and places difficult to reach for other paints. Also, plus point, you can reactivate the wash, because it's an oil, with an activator or with mineral spirits, allowing you to clean the thing better. So if you are seeing me right now making this and looking horrible, don't be afraid, because I will fix that later. And it is a lot of different washes, the ones that I'm gonna use, so it does not matter that it looks horrible right now. Now, in this very moment, I'm using the thinner or the activator, it depends on how you want to call it. And with the blue robot, because I have applied the other, I will apply this light rust, then also for the green and for the bomb bot, because this one looks more like accumulated humidity or water that has transformed into light rust, hence the name of light rust. It could sound stupid, but it is how it works. The first layer of rust usually are more kind of browny or purple, and the most recent ones usually are more orange. And the impact of the side of the robot happened because I wanted to put a camera there and I messed it with the Dremel. So I left that to be there because I like how it looks in the end. Again, another part in which is looking horrible, but doesn't matter because later with the activator or the thinner, we will reactivate this again and it will look better. And after this light rust, we will use another different oil. So it's like 3 different oils, I'm not sure. Also, I'm using the light rust to make some leakings here and there. After this, it is when it comes the usage of the streaking grime from MIG, and it's this brown one. It has more density, that means it has more pigment, so the leakings are more evident. So apply this in logical places, such as in places in which the humidity accumulates, fuel leakings, etc. It's kind of multi-purpose. And now I will stipple with this sponge a bit small scratches on the paint, the ones that I couldn't make on the decals, for example. After this, I call it done. Chapter 8: Dust and Details. For the dust and the details, I will use a simple technique, a lacquer-based thing, which is this kind of water thing, and a dust color. You first apply with an airbrush the lacquer, then the dust, and then you use as an activator water that will remove the paint in the most exposed parts using this brush. So let's speak about the lore. The Fallout is retrofuturistic. A lot of people say that happens because the transistor was never invented. My theory, what I think is producing certain technologies is quite expensive. So different states, different countries go back to old or easy or reliable technologies. One of those could be to mass produce in automated factories, such as the layer of the mechanist in Fallout 4, these robots, for example, using wheels of mining trucks that cannot be used more, or wheels of tractors to create these spherical robots, which are low technological level machines, or World War II technology, or early Cold War technology, because in an automated factory with an AI, you do not run the risk of the factory self-improving itself using the technology it's producing in mass. The worst case scenario, you will go back and you will have thousands of T-34s or IS-2s of Stalins. And this is a plain airdropping tanks, because I imagine the blue tank, the blue robot, could be deployed like that. That was all. Now what I have painted is gray metal on the lights, because right now I will apply different things. And something important, it's the burnt effects. I will make that using the airbrush. It's a really easy technique. Also, this is the old brusher I have used for the wheels. As I was saying, if you use your airbrush in order to make burnt effects with black paint, which is quite easy, you will have a quite nice result. I prefer to do this instead of using acrylics and making burnt effects with purples, reds, metallics, because usually normal cannons which are painted, it is just a black dusty thing and that's all. And it's again easy to make. So yeah, the only thing is the fact that you need an airbrush or a spray. Nevertheless, later is only to use varnish and it will be protected and it will look cool and good enough. Now I'm painting the last details, as I was saying before, because this is the part of details, which is the gloss varnish. In every model which has googles or certain metallic parts, I usually use, that sounds redundant, the gloss varnish. Now I will use this Tamiya translucent red for the brake light, and that was all. And as extra lore, the guys, the crew members of the tank, I imagine that they could came from a kind of penal legion or penal battalion. And again, I will not paint them in this video. I will do magic and now they are all painted. And everything here was painted by hand, so that means that the letters are not decals. And they mean Correktirujusie Tankowie Squadron or Corrective Tankist Squadron, SZ means Shariki Stalina, Stalin's balls, which is the division or the thing with these guys. And the mouth with eyes in the back, it's because I was thinking in a kind of motorbike club to create a kind of logo. That was all. The overall objective of this project was to create these guys, these vehicles, these robots, using only as reference the robot generator. Sometimes you do not have the best cards, but this was the cards that I had. I also wanted to create a gigantic robot, so I will have to do that one day. Also, it's to teach you something, to entertain you, and the fact that I'm giving you some value and something. So that was all. I do not want to overwrite the things that I like Fallout. That's the reason of setting the action in Europe and in certain things. I guess I should make different factions. Maybe now it's time for Europe, I'm not sure. I also want to make Hobbit stuff. The idea of the orange jumpsuits in these guys is the fact that they came from penal legions or penal battalions. That's the reason they are allowed to modify a lot their vehicles and their uniforms. Maybe, most probably, they will not serve back, so they are allowed to paint whatever they want. And that was all. Or I should say, поехали!